It's okay. They do that all the time. Is it going?
Yeah, go ahead.
Dynamics of Health with Joy Ladd every Saturday at 12:30 p.m. discussing how to prevent chronic diseases, ways to reduce stress, and demonstrating that intervention through lifestyle changes is key to reducing health disparities among Black people in our communities. Black health matters. Black wealth is health. So join us for this informative and educational health program, Dynamics of Health, every Saturday at 12:30 p.m. with your host, Joy Ladd. And now, today's message.
Welcome to Dynamics of Health. I'm your host, Joy Ladd. When it comes to disease, genetics loads the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger. So then, wellness is your lifestyle. Last year, on one of our shows, we talked about genetically modified foods, also known as genetically engineered foods, and how these foods suppress the immune system. We also talked about how the governments of the United States and other countries are pushing this on the consumer. We talked about the government's cover up and how they do not want us to know about any potential dangers that these manipulated foods will bring. And finally, we mentioned that effective at the start of 2022, laws were in place that mandate on the package of the product any ingredient or food that has been genetically altered. On today's show, we will get into meat produced in a lab. That's right, that next piece of meat you eat may not have come directly from an animal. Let's find out about this. According to one source, the idea of lab grown, cell based, cultured meats may seem confusing. So let's go into the history of meat that is produced from cells in a laboratory. Since the first burger grown in a lab was eaten in 2013, the industry has experienced massive growth and a lot of technological advances. Soon, if it's not already taken place, lab grown meats are likely to be found on grocery store shelves in our area. What is lab grown meat exactly, you may ask? Lab grown meat or cultured meat is made of real animal cells. The difference is that whereas the meat cells come directly from animals' bodies, are grown in a process that has massive negative environmental and animal welfare consequences. Rather than coming directly from an animal, they remove the cells and then they manipulate the cells in a lab. Lab grown meat cells mature and grow in a lab with much smaller animal welfare and environmental impacts, obviously. But is that meat safe? The first burger made from beef that was grown in a lab was prepared and consumed by food critics in London in 2013. The burger was a result of 2 years and $325,000 worth of testing and development. And since that time, companies have been hard at work to produce more. In lab grown meat, there is no guarantee of safety. It was first available in Singapore. They were the first nation to approve the sale of lab grown meat. And when they did so, it took place in September 2020, and lab grown chicken is already on the market there. Companies in the United States are ready and to start rolling lab grown meat to grocery stores since the Federal Drug and Food Administration, aka FDA, has already approved lab grown meat. It may already be in our area. What is it made out of? Lab grown meat is grown using cells taken from an animal, so it is virtually the same thing, they claim, as meat taken from an animal raised on a factory farm, except the animal did not need to die, although there are some instances when animals do die. But for the most part, an animal does not need to die. Lab grown meat typically starts with the extraction of cells from a living animal. Those cells are then placed into a concoction of different nutrients where they multiply and create the sinews of real meat. Production facility staff are then able to use this tissue to make a variety of different meat cuts. The cells that are used in the production of lab grown meat are called stem cells. These are cells that can self renew and differentiate into more specialized types of cells. Specific stem cells are selected based on the desired product. For example, for many years, lab grown meat companies have relied on fetal bovine serum, which is extracted from pregnant cows at slaughter, as a growth medium for their products. Scaffolding is the structure that the lab grown cells grow onto and around in order to produce the cuts of meat which meat eaters are familiar with. When I first heard of lab grown meat, it did not produce a warm feeling from within, even though I am not a meat eater. I am concerned for the health and well being of my people. After all, it is meat that is produced using cells from an animal and then cultivated in a production facility. And so I am wondering what could be added during that process that may not be a good thing to somebody that eats it. And those things could be channeled intentionally to the poor Black segment of the population. They claim it is the same thing as eating meat produced on a farm. However, cultivating the cells in a dish for food does not sit well with me. There are too many loopholes for contamination of any substance involuntarily or voluntarily. The USDA's interest in lab grown meat is evident from their creation and funding of the National Institute for Cellular Agriculture in conjunction with Tufts University. How much are they getting to back this? How much in profit for funding this project? I do wonder. The first burger was produced for over $350,000 in 2013. I wonder how many starving children and families that are impoverished, that are poor, could have used that money. Lives, how many lives could have been fed? And the question comes, does it contain enough nutrition? The nutritional value of lab grown meat is still not fully understood. Specifically, in comparison to animal derived meat, experts do warn about eating too much lab grown meat, as doing so comes with the same problems as eating too much animal derived meat, such as high cholesterol. The main question becomes, is lab grown meat safe? It is claimed that lab meat is safer because they are produced in a controlled environment. GMO food was also reported as being safe, remember? Many facts were hidden from the public concerning genetically modified food. So why should they be trusted now? And who is overseeing this thing? The United States Department of Agriculture and the Food and Drug Administration will govern the various products as they begin to roll out. But keep in mind, it was the government that sanctioned and approved that Tuskegee testing of syphilis on our people. The regulation of lab grown meat in the United States will be shared responsibility between those two entities, the USDA and the FDA. as per 2019 agreement to that effect. The FDA will govern the collection of stem cells, the management of cell banks, and the steps that turn cells into tissue, and the USDA will oversee the processing of the tissue into meat and its labeling for retail. Do your homework. Make an informed decision before buying this product. Be proactive with your health. That's what we're about. This ends today's broadcast. Thanks for sharing your time with us again today. We look forward to you tuning in again next week at the same time and the same place for Dynamics of Health.
You've been listening to Dynamics of Health with your host, Joy Ladd. Thanks for joining us for this informative broadcast designed to improve your standard of living, to fight preventable chronic diseases, and to promote a healthy lifestyle in the Black community. For more information, call 918-637-2941 and tune in next Saturday at 12:30 p.m. for Dynamics of Health with your host, Joy Ladd, your educational destination for health, here on Urban Radio 100.7 FM.